Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 7. That is 1 week of the quarantine. Woohoo! Since today is something of an anniversary, I just wanted to spend today's video just sort of looking back over the last week or so of what I've learned. The week of the quarantine itself, but also kind of the build up. I've been spending the last few days sort of now, getting into routines and, sort of like learning behaviors and sort of modifying them as I go along. And so I think that, day 7, 1 week is a good point to sort of look back and see what I've learned, what I plan to do differently, what I think was a good idea, because I do think I've had, some good ideas here. Yeah, basically just spend this episode looking back and reflecting, offering maybe some pieces of advice for the next week. Because, God knows we're going to be here for a while, so we might as well, do some learning, shall we? Well, I think the one thing that sticks out the most is that I have been really struggling with discipline for eating. My eating schedule has been very weird because this whole quarantine has really caused me to have to change things up a bunch. So I mean, for the first part of the quarantine, I was not teaching my regular classes. So I got used to getting up kind of late-ish, and then very reluctantly going to eat breakfast. Breakfast is usually sort of like a bedrock of my normal day. Because for literally the whole time that I've been teaching at the school that I'm teaching at, I've had a class from 7 to 8:30 in the morning. So whenever I come back, I just immediately launch into making and eating breakfast. Usually I clean up the apartment a little bit, make my bed, just sort of like get things in order. But then I immediately launch into eating breakfast. And so that's usually sort of like the transition point between quote beginning of the day and the middle of the day. So not having, I'm still teaching that, but it's different. Teaching not even six, like 3 feet away from my bed. Because when you are at this, or when I'm at the school at least, I'm not very far. I live pretty close, in fact. But the fact that I have to like walk through civilization and pay attention to not being hit by cars and interact with more people than I usually would just sitting here in my house, it wakes you up a little bit more. Or at least I feel a little bit more awake, a little bit more chipper when I get home, and so I'm not immediately tempted to go back to sleep. With teaching online, it's a different story because, well, like I said, I'm 3 to 5 feet away from my bed. And yeah, I usually have some tea with me in the morning, but it's pretty easy to just sort of slip back into bed. Even if I don't go to sleep, to just sort of lay there for a while and do nothing in particular. So having the sort of regular breakfast time, or not having the regular breakfast time, has been a little bit strange and has definitely thrown me off. But I think the thing that throws me off the most is that for lunch, basically every day, definitely every weekday, there is a restaurant that I go to. There is this concept in Mexico that is not in the U.S., which I love. It's probably my favorite thing about Mexico. Well, one of my favorite things about Mexico. What the hell is going on with my collar here? So one of my favorite things about Mexico is this style of lunch called comida corrida. The literal translation is fast food, which is not at all the sort of American conception of fast food. What it is that you go to this restaurant, and they're usually not they're definitely not fancy restaurants normally. There's a term here called godines, which is essentially just like office jockey, pencil pusher types. They're the people who eat at these restaurants. I suppose I am too, because, well, I eat there all the time. And what it is that it's, at my particular place, it varies a little bit. At my particular place, it's 66 or 80 pesos. Let's see, less than $5, basically, for some kind of soup as the first plate. Usually either salad or like a plate of rice as a second dish, then a like sort of plato fuerte, like a main course, and then like a dessert, usually like a fruit or arroz con leche, which I didn't like at first, but have very much come to like. And then, just sort of like bottomless refills of water, like flavored water of some kind. Usually like horchata, Jamaica, guayaba, mango, like mango, like different kinds of fruits, basically. And I mean, for me, that's perfect. It's a nice, big, solid meal. It's very cheap. It's usually pretty good. I mean, sure, it can get kind of samey, but like I mean, there are any number of restaurants around here that offer this with their own sort of variations. And so, like, I mean, I used to go out literally every day for lunch. So, like, I never buy groceries for lunch, what have you. So that's been a huge change, is obviously I can't go to this place now, having to cook or many times order for lunch. And, I mean, it just kind of throws my day off. I also just go to the same restaurant every day, and so I have the same waiter every day, and so we sort of formed a relationship. We like to talk with each other. I popped over there before I officially started the quarantine to wish him and the rest of the staff, to sort of luck and that they take care of themselves. Because I imagine by this point they're closed. Although I don't know, there's actually still quite a bit going on here out on the streets of Mexico. And then lastly, I'm just very terrible at taking stuff out of the freezer in anticipation for dinner. And so that's been causing a lot of unnecessary ordering, like today, for example. So I think that's the one big lesson that I've taken away from this, is that when I go grocery shopping next, which will probably be next week, I need to be a lot more organized and deliberate about food and like meal planning. I stupidly let some vegetables go to waste as well. So, I mean, I think some meal planning and some meal prepping will probably solve that problem. So that's something that I've got my eyes on for, the sort of next segments of the quarantine. Right. I've sort of harped on this one, but I think it's important to, because, I mean, it really, really affects the way that your day goes and therefore how your quarantine goes. It's just really essential that you have a project and that you keep working on it. Just super essential. Luckily, I mean, so next week on Thursday, I'll be starting a new online job teaching. It's going to have me getting up at like very early in the morning. First class will be at 5:30 a.m. So, I'll probably be getting up at like 4:45 or so. Teaching throughout the morning and then going back to sleep. So, like, I mean, I'll have a little bit more structure now, and my schedule is actually going to change a lot, I imagine, if I'm going to be, teaching that early in the morning. So I think that'll solve that problem. That'll also get some extra money coming in, which also kind of alleviates my worry about ordering so much. But that's definitely, I think, if not the most important, the second behind the food thing lesson is keeping your mind on a task. And then probably the third most important thing I would say is to keep in regular contact with people and the people that you care about. I think that's pretty damn important. I think that you just gotta keep those bonds going. And I mean, that's not necessarily a problem for me because I'm a pretty social person, but yeah, you just gotta keep those bonds going. So yeah, that's sort of my 1 week takeaway of the quarantine. I'm not too stir crazy yet. I'm trying my best to avoid that feeling. We'll see if I actually do end up avoiding that feeling, but that's sort of where I'm sitting. That's how I see it from where I'm sitting right now. So yeah, that is day 7, the 1 week anniversary of Tales from the Quarantine. Thank you for tuning in once again, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, I wanted to give a special shout out to Morgan Osborne. Hi, Morgan. I'm glad that you're such a fan of my videos here. It really makes me happy. So say hi to Uncle Lou for me. Sorry that the March Madness tournament couldn't happen this year. But yeah, so thanks everybody for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow for day 8.